Nå har jeg en spennende episode til dere. Jeg var en runde rundt i sommer og reiste litt. Jeg var blant annet i Transylvania og Bucharest, og der møtte jeg en fyr, Alex Buzatu. En arkitekt og bohem. Jeg visste liksom ikke helt hva en bohem var, men når jeg så han, så ja, selvfølgelig, det er en bohem. En sånn rufsete idealist. Kjempekul fyr, trivelig. Vi snakket masse om arkitektur, men sannheten er at jeg har jo ikke peiling på arkitektur. Så samtalen gikk fort inn på Romanias historie, revolusjonen, konsekvensene det har hatt for han og hans familie. Vi har snakket om Draculas slott, og så videre. Jeg synes det ble utrolig spennende. Det er på en fortausrestaurant, så lyden er litt deretter, men jeg klippet og ordnet litt med den, så jeg tror det skal være ganske greit å høre. Kos dere. I am here with the architect, the Bohemian. It's Alex.
Okay.
We're sitting in the middle of Bucharest, and you chose this place.
Yeah.
Because we are sitting next to a big new Romanian style building.
Yeah.
Which for me it looks like something from Harry Potter.
More or less.
More or less. With this gothic vampire-like windows and lanterns. But as an architect, you see this probably as something else.
More or less, yes. I see it as one of the most relevant and interesting examples of the Neo-Romanians. Yeah, and the Neo-Romanian style is a mix of various influences, but it's not mostly Gothic, but actually mostly Byzantine elements here.
Okay.
So the Neo-Romanian style is mostly some sort of a Byzantine revival. Yeah?
Okay.
With a few elements of Gothic, a few elements of Art Nouveau, a few elements of folk architecture.
Mm-hmm.
So mixing them together in a cult style developed at the turn of the century. That's called Neo-Romanian. But the core of the aesthetics is actually Byzantine.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we see a lantern that looks more Gothic is an exception.
Oh, okay. And this is one of the times I really wish I knew anything about architecture. But it sounded very nice when you said it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure what's the common architecture in Norway is. It's square red houses.
Yeah.
What kind of style is that?
What kind of style is that? So what I know, what I've seen in photos at least, because I've never been to Norway, what I consider it to be, it's usually called the Scandinavian style, but all these regular, typical brick houses or colored houses or red houses as you call them, cannot be, put into a certain style.
Okay.
They have so less decoration, so few elements of decoration that you usually you cannot say that they follow a style.
Okay.
In order for a building to be properly labeled as belonging to a certain style, there has to be enough decoration on it or enough aesthetic features to pinpoint the fact that voila, it's the architect wanted to do it this way, Baroque.
Yeah.
Or Renaissance or something.
Yeah.
But these are usually non-stylistic. And from what I know in photos, most of the countryside of like this can be vernacular, can be non-style, can be modernist, and modernist has just little decoration, and it's hard to pinpoint it as either modern, or just non-style.
Yeah. So in fact, we have so little style. It's we are so boring that it's a non-style. That's that's interesting.
I'm not sure because I'm just talking about what I've seen in photos.
Yeah.
I cannot say that that has no style, but I would compare Oslo with what I've seen in photos with Bucharest, and I can say the fact that Bucharest is more eclectic and more diverse and more richer in styling than Oslo is,
Yeah.
and richer in historical styles than Oslo is. For instance, I know some few revered and quite famous Oslo recent buildings. So modernism, contemporary style is important in Oslo, but not necessarily older styles.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's
The Opera
interesting.
House of Oslo, for instance.
Oh, yeah, you know
Yes,
this,
yes,
yeah?
I know. It's a
Yeah.
recent building,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's contemporary. Yeah.
So we have something to be proud of.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's
sure.
good.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, because I was walking around this city, and as you said, there's like no houses are the same. Even though you can go down the street and you have like all these different houses in different architectural styles and stuff.
That's exactly what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
The difference between all this diversity here versus all the, standardization you can find in the north of Europe. Not only Norway, obviously, Sweden as well. England. England has a lot of, common houses, row houses, the usual terrace houses you can find in England in brick that have no style. Are just, background.
Okay. Which breaks an architect's heart. Do you like it to be like a masterpiece? Do you get sad when you see these houses, boring houses?
I know what to say actually. I actually enjoy diversity,
Okay.
and even the lack of diversity can become diverse in the end if you're coming from a diverse country, like me. So no, but it can be a little bit more boring in Northern Europe because of all these houses that look the same. At one point it gets boring, I guess. Yeah. But also it has positive aspects. It's it's coordinated. It's clear. It's cleaner maybe.
Yeah.
Cleaner design. Whereas here it's a bit shanty, as you can see. A lot of derelict buildings.
But how did it end up like that? How did it end up with a city full of all these different houses all over?
Yeah, it's a complex story. It's history of hundreds of years, but I will try to make it short and make it essential.
Okay.
There are a couple of reasons. One would be the fact that this area is used to being hit by massive earthquakes.
Okay.
And Bucharest is considered the capital city of earthquake risk in the European Union.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had, is it any recently or is it a long time ago, the last earthquake?
Yes. It's typical. It's usual for Bucharest to have a major earthquake at every, let's say, 30 to 50 years, more or less. And it's been like this approximately ever since.
Okay.
I mean, from the beginning of the known history of this town, chronicles have been, periodically talking about a major earthquake now, a major earthquake then, and so on. The most recent ones, and better known, are the ones in 1977.
Okay.
That was 7.2 on the Richter scale.
Big one, no?
Quite massive. Previously, there was a 7.41, so even bigger, in 1940. Others, and I remember another big one, arguably the biggest, in 1802 or 1804, something like this, very close to the year 1800. That was, it's now considered to have reached a Richter scale of around 8.
Okay. And it's proportional, so 8 is way much more than 7, isn't it? Like
Yes. It's not it's exponential.
Exponential,
It's called exponential. Yeah, it goes like this. Yeah, so
that's a big one. Yeah.
but you couldn't have measured the Richter scale in 1804. You didn't have the Richter scale. Richter was not yet born.
Okay.
Yeah. But scientists make up an approximation of
on the damages or
on the damages
Yeah.
relating to the stories.
Yeah.
And there were stories about that major earthquake in 1800 something that said that every single church tower collapsed.
Okay, and then you rebuild, and then it's something's left and something's
Yes,
rebuilt.
exactly.
Okay.
Because because this city is used to having these earthquakes periodically and getting partially destroyed, there is always a question of rebuilding.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons. Two, a lot of fires and disasters happening in the Middle Ages. For instance, the Great Bucharest Fire is considered to have happened in 1847.
Okay.
Quite late.
Yeah.
1847. And recollections of the Great Fire talk about most of the old town, that means the heart of the city, being
wiped out.
because most of the buildings were built in wood back then.
Yeah. And you have a lot of. I've been traveling the countryside. It's a wood-rich country.
Yeah.
So.
But Bucharest city proper has nothing left, or just a few.
Yeah.
Not so many wooden buildings, because most of them burned in 1847. And following this disaster, the city hall ended up with a law to forbid wooden buildings in the city center. And suddenly all the buildings had to be constructed in brick.
Yeah. And which is what we see now, like cement and bricks and stuff.
Yes. And this is why you don't see medieval era buildings in Old Town.
Okay.
Although Bucharest is a medieval city.
Yeah.
If you walk through the streets of what's called Old Town, that's actually the heart of the city center of Bucharest. The former medieval quarters, you could say, you don't see medieval buildings, and it can look. You may get confused. You may have encounter guides who say that you're now going inside the all medieval quarters. But look, I don't see any medieval building. The explanation for this is the fact that the former medieval buildings have been destroyed, and then you find newer buildings built on top of them.
No. Okay.
And built on the foundations, carrying the same, plots of land and foundations of former medieval buildings, that have been destroyed every now and then.
Yeah. I see in Trondheim, where I'm from, there's a rich like a Viking culture. So they are like digging up every chance they get. If like now we're gonna remodel our city square, and then all the guys, they were digging in the ground first to see if there's any relics or something. And I did find a church from. I don't know my history, but it's like a 1,000-year-old church that's like 5 feet under the ground, which was like a big thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And then they fixed it up and they put a parking lot on top or something.
It happened. Something similar happened here as well.
Okay.
There was a project for a big underground parking.
Okay.
And it's been done some 5 to 10 years ago, something like this, 10 years ago. And while digging, they found remnants of some church and another one, I guess, and other buildings. But they didn't keep it.
Okay.
They didn't keep the ruins, and you now end up with a parking place. And there is another reason. I would like to finish this.
No.
So it's the earthquakes.
Yeah. It's the fires.
The fires. There is also the usual, low or medium quality of the built environment that makes it easier for buildings to, degrade. Degrading a long time and collapse easier. Bucharest and Romania doesn't have a tradition in sturdy, resistant buildings.
But when you know there's earthquake coming, it might maybe we should.
Yes, but imagine that that makes the cost of building higher than in comparison in Paris that has no earthquakes. So you have to reinforce the buildings, better, and that means more money. It means the pillars and the columns and the girders and all the others have to be bigger. Costs, So otherwise, Romania is not a rich country. It's in between. Hasn't been, or just for brief period it has been, let's say, rich during the time of the monarchy in the Belle Epoque period. That was the only period in which Romania, let's say, had the money and the education to invest in quality buildings and in quality design and in resistance proper.
But it sounds also like the regulations, like just after the revolution, there wasn't many laws, I have understood. So you could make houses. It wasn't so much controlled how you make a house.
Yeah, it was a power vacuum for a few months, let's say, after the 1989 anti-communist revolution. That followed with a few years of more or less chaos, with laws not so strict, and it happens today. And law enforcement and the precision of laws here in Romania is quite hard to find. Exceptional. So.
But do you remember? I don't know how old you were at the 1989.
Yes. I was 4 years old.
4 years old. Okay.
3 years to 4. I'm born 1986. March.
So you were not at the barricades and protesting.
No.
But did you grow up here, or you grew up somewhere else than this?
Yes, I was born in a nearby town that's called Craiova. That it's a regional capital. It's one of the biggest cities in Romania, the 6th or 7th, something like this, and the regional, capital. I moved with my parents because they are teachers, and during communism they were forced to take other jobs. They were forced to go into various places to teach. They were not free to choose where they practiced. So we went to another town that's called Ploiești, and I lived there for a few years up until the revolution. So from 1987, let's say, to 1989, I lived in Ploiești because my parents were teachers there. They had to go there, and following the revolution, we came back to Craiova. And I got here in Bucharest after high school when I had to go to university, and because I didn't have any architecture university in my hometown, I searched for another city, and I picked Bucharest because it was the capital city and closest to Craiova, some 200 kilometers away. But if it were to have had a university of architecture in my hometown, I would have stayed there. I would have moved here.
Because you like that place.
Yes, I do. Even now.
Even now. So you miss it still.
Yes, I do. And whenever I come home, I feel well, and I visit the streets and look, past the monuments I used to look at. It's a very nice city. I really recommend it.
Did you say it was around close to Bucharest, or was it?
Yes, it's some 200 kilometers away, roughly. 200
to the south or to
the west.
To the west. Okay.
I enjoy going west.
West. Okay. Good for you. Yeah. When it comes to the revolution, you were 4 years old. Your parents were moved. Do your parents have they told you like stories from that time?
Of course.
Is there something that sticks with you from that time that you think that's very different than now, or what's your thought about communist time?
Most of the things I know are the result of what I've read, actually. A tiny proportion of my knowledge about the communist times actually comes from my family, what they have told me. So not a lot of stories coming from my parents' mouths. Most of the things I know are from common knowledge, things I read.
But that's interesting. Is it because it's a little bit like taboo? They don't want to think about that time, or is it?
Yes, it's part of the story, but obviously this is not the sole reason. Yes, I come from a family of intellectuals. My parents are teachers. My grandparents have also been teachers. We were not so happy with the communist times, and actually we come from a family of people who have been stripped off of their possessions at the beginning of communist times. My great-grandfather was a landlord and a priest.
Okay.
So he was both a landlord and a priest. And he had a few estates in the countryside, lands with vines, with some houses, manor houses, mansions. So, and those were confiscated as at the beginning of communist times. Private property was abolished, and everything was so-called nationalized, and the landlords were usually labeled as enemies of the state, or people of unhealthy origins.
Okay.
These are the two the labels that they were given, and my great-grandfather was stripped of all his possessions, and he was sentenced to jail.
Okay.
And he did 9 years of political prison in one of the fiercest, the most brutal of the communist prisons. We had 4. Yes. Not as fierce as Auschwitz, obviously, but not quite far away. And you can imagine that the family was, affected by this, and it's a trauma. And I got to know some of the things, to find out about some of the things quite late in my life, because my relatives and my parents would not talk about these things.
Okay.
And they would not be happy about communism. They would just talk about other things.
Okay. It's super interesting, because we in Norway we have a total different story. So it's like trying to relate to it. It's very strange to think, because like even the revolution was it's like televised.
Yeah.
It's like watching a movie. But like you have the story, and you grew up in the story. So it's very interesting. How does this story affect you today? Do you feel, are you more wary about, or more skeptical to the politicians? It's like, how has this made you a man today, in a way?
Yes, it has influenced me in various ways.
Okay.
One of the ways I can pinpoint is the fact that as soon as I realized, slowly but surely, little by little, the elements of my past, the past of my family, and realized all these, all these terrible things and dark stories that happened to my family, and not only to me, but all the former elite, because the communists fought against the former elite, the elite from the time of the monarchy. That meant, intellectuals, business people, doctors, teachers, industrialists, all the people that were not proletariat, working class or communist, so they fought against them. So as soon as I realized, from the perspective of my case, and expanding it and linking with all the stories I read, it has motivated me into trying to restore the memory of the past times, the pre-communist times. And this is one of the things I do with tour guiding, because I do tour guiding with Romanians mostly, and only just recently with foreign tourists, foreigners. I'm involved in, for instance, one of the projects I'm involved in is called Castle Break.
Okay.
And it's about visiting castles and manor houses and estates from pre-communist times. That means interwar period and Belle Epoque period, mostly. that belonged to, the aristocracy, pre-communist, the so-called enemies of the state, such as my great-grandfather, and a lot of these castles are unknown.
Okay.
So most of the Romanians know just a few. It's the Brown Castle, it's the Peleș Castle, it's the Hadde Castle, a few others, and stop. But Romania is full of other castles that belong to these people. And when I visit these castles, there is always a story of what happened in the beginning of communism and how that castle ended up being confiscated and the people sentenced to jail and taken out of their homes, all their belongings burned or stolen by the communists. So I'm trying to restore some of the awareness because a lot of education has been lost during communism, obviously, because communists had the program to
Sorry, I will go and the guest for
Okay.
Yeah?
No problem. Okay, we can go back to
The country is filled with old castles,
Yeah.
not the one everybody tourists go to, but
Yes.
it's a lot of other places as well.
Yes.
And you investigate them and you teach about the past time, pre-communist time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm trying to restore memory because a lot of memory has been lost during communism when communists had to make this period, to whitewash the memory, to make it as if it didn't happen, more or less, or it was evil. Yeah. And this continued. This continued in post-communism as well, because a lot of communist leaders cling to power and
often.
continue to be powerful even after Ceausescu's execution. And mentalities continued. Slowly but surely they are coming back to capitalist and Western approaches. But the process has been slow, and education in these 30 years of post-communism, because we're already 30 years, it's 2019 versus 1989, these 30 years, education revival or resurgence, restoration of the awareness of cultural values has not been going very well. And I realize this because I come from a family of intellectuals. I know, my parents and whatever. Yes.
I find it super interesting because history is written by the winners.
Yes.
But who is the winners here? Because the winners were the communists for a while.
Yes.
Like they were deciding what is history and what should be written.
Yes.
But after them, then who are telling the stories? And then you say that it's not clear and they are still behind the curtains. And
Yes.
so so you want to tell the other story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to, resurrect some of the memories and some of the values. Because of all these years of communism and post-communism, you can imagine centuries. People have lost, and I see it as I speak to people have lost a great deal of ability of distinguishing quality from non-quality.
Okay.
Distinguishing a beautiful building from a kitsch, ugly building. Because they have lost, they have no exercise any longer.
No.
They're thinking about what's beautiful and what's not. And I look around because I'm also a collaborator of the Romanian Institute of Heritage. Yeah.
Okay.
So although most of my activity is based on tour guiding, I also do other things related to heritage and heritage promotion. And I'm also close to the realm of restoration. Yeah, heritage. So I look around me and I see a lot of buildings being restored recently, badly done,
Okay.
mutilated.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people have lost the ability to, recognize a beautiful building and conserve it or restore it in a beautiful way. You end up with Disneyland-looking restoration works, and with plastic plaster, with plastic window frames and bright colors, and it looks like Disneyland, although it shouldn't.
Yeah, and it breaks an architect's heart.
Yes,
and
it
a
does.
historian's.
Yes,
Yeah.
and not only am I upset by the fact that these things happen, I'm also upset by the fact that I encounter a lot of people saying that we like it.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's
Yeah.
now it's clean.
Yeah.
It was so grey back then. We hate grey. Grey was the time of communism. Now we want bright colors. We want to be happy.
Yeah.
We have got rid of communism. Okay, I have no problem with this, but they failed to realize that the fact that bright look and clean look, it's actually kitsch,
Yeah.
and it's done through loss of decoration and loss of finesse
Yeah.
that happened in the initial design.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart, yes. And what I want to do is to restore the awareness.
Yeah, but also I understood like when the communists confiscated a lot of houses, and then after there was a law saying
Yes.
that they were allowed to buy back their own
Yes.
property.
Yeah.
But then there was also a law saying that if you lived there for so and so long, you could also
Yes.
have it. And
Yes.
then there's suddenly two parts who owns the same house at the same time.
Yes.
Is it something like that?
Yes, it's something like
Yeah.
that, yes. All properties that were confiscated by the communists, and that means a lot of, let's say, mansions belonging to former elites of the time of the monarchy, so-called nobleman houses, yeah? Most of them ended up being confiscated by communists, yeah? And now, after the fall of communism, you have this law of buyback, as you say. It's actually a law of restoring the properties back to their initial owners or the heirs. Yeah, it's not a buyback; it's just restoring back. And that triggers a scenario of never-ending stories of court files. Fights in court.
Court fights. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fights in court for possession,
Yeah.
in which you have a heir of the initial owner coming back, pretending that he is a heir. He can be a heir, but he may not be a heir.
Okay.
He may not be the only one.
Yeah.
And this is part of the story. The other part of the story is exactly what you were saying. The other law that says that if you stay there, you may earn possession rights. And who are the people who stay there? Imagine, maybe communists.
Yeah.
Because some of these villas were
Nice.
nice and taken by communists for their own residences. And suddenly you get up with, the high-class communist official.
With power.
Yes, filing for that property himself. Other situations are of poor people that were brought in these villas in order to just use the spaces, and suddenly there were villas were transformed into social housing, and they are also subject of this law because maybe if they've been staying there for an important amount of years, 20 years or 30 years, they may earn usage rights themselves. And what you end up with is all this, clogging of property status. And that's one of the reasons for which you see a lot of beautiful Belle Epoque and interwar period buildings being abandoned, derelict, ruined, semi-ruined, because most of them have property issues. And they are in court for whatever reason. It's now they stopped.
Where are they coming here? Oh, that's because it's you're
Because
sitting
it's
next
the
to a
police
police station.
station.
Of course, there's police here. Yeah.
And also mosquitoes.
And also mosquitoes. If it's too much, you tell me.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I find it really interesting, and we were talking about like Transylvania, because Transylvania it's very myth. And now I've been there and had a look, also at these big castles, and it was really not what I expected, because it's a story, at least for me, it's a story that's like grew bigger and bigger, and it's darker, and it's Dracula, and it's dark forces, and it's everything. And when I went there, especially to Bran's castle, which is the Dracula's one, then the guy tells me that well, it's Dracula it's a story. It's really not that much truth in it, except that there was this Vlad the Impaler, and he lived this place, but that's it in a way. So that wasn't what I expected at all. My own fault. I should have researched way more than I did. But coming to Transylvania, it was a beautiful place. It was a lot of hills, a lot of nature, all these cozy little cabins all over. And then we went to Pelers Castle, which also was a great palace in my views. I haven't seen many of them. What do you like, Pelers Castle?
Obviously,
It's not kitsch. It's not Hodebry.
No. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. But it's a tourist attraction and it's well known.
Yeah.
So with the Castle Breaks tour, we are aiming at showing lesser known castles that can function as tourist attractions as well, and making them sustainable in this way, promoting them. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying to bring the underground upper ground.
Yeah.
We don't need to go to the Pelers. It's well known. It's enough. It's okay.
Yeah.
The Brown Castle as well.
It got its attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Obviously, I like it.
It was so funny because I was thinking when I went in, there was these signs outside telling the history of and it's actually owned by some Germans now, I think, Brand's Palace.
I don't know.
I think so. It's in if they own it or if they have the responsibility for the restoration something.
You're talking about the Pelers or the Brand?
No, Brand. No, it's Brand.
The Brand.
Brand is Holstenberger family or
maybe.
something.
Maybe, I don't know.
So it's I walk into Dracula's big castle, and what do I see? I see 1960-ish furniture, and it's like what? The dark what you call them, like the Dark Lord. What kind of architecture does it have? How is the interior? Well, it's a little bit pinkish, 60s. Okay. I was like, okay, didn't expect this.
Okay, yeah.
And it's also like a big tourist attraction. So we were like in queue all day, and so it's. But now I want to go and look at these smaller places up in the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else we haven't talked about that should be mentioned?
Whatever sparkles your interest, ask me.
I found it really interesting because you are talking about like all those who lost property, and it's fun because to me it seemed that somebody lost something but somebody gained something.
Yeah.
So it seems, are you very divided as a country now? It's because somebody has earned something.
Yeah. I guess yes. The communist times were, subject to great social unrest and problems. Now we are recovering. I guess the traumas are fading away slowly but surely. The communists also did a couple of good things. I'm not the one who would, accuse them of everything. Everything is a shade of grey in a way or another. But I believe that communism is more black than white. But let's say, for instance, some white things, some good things about communism. For instance, the communists gave better chances to poor people. The working class, the proletariat, and the peasants. Some of them ended up living better lives in communism. Yes, quality housing even. The communists built a lot of social housing estates. Yes, the blocks of flats, they are ugly, but they had sewerage, they had running water, they had, electricity, whereas the peasant houses in that times didn't. And in the interwar period, during the time of the monarchy, social inequity was higher. So communists did some good things, for sure. But the fact that they ended up, putting the social hierarchy upside down with suddenly the intellectuals and the middle class going beneath the working class, that triggered a lot of unrest. Yes, and there was another key factor about this, the fact that the communists promoted espionage between Romanians.
Yeah, okay.
The so-called security service promoted so-called informers. They recruited informers. They actually forced regular Romanians to report to the police of what their relatives and this talked about. And there are estimates, dramatic estimates, saying that something like 1 out of 4 Romanians ended up being informers to the secret police.
Okay.
So what that meant was fracturing of families. If you got an informer once in 4 times, your father was an informer. Yes, and he went to the police to say if you talked badly about Ceausescu or the Communist Party. And most of these Romanians were forced to do it. They didn't like it, obviously, but they ended up talking badly about their neighbors, about their families, about whatever. In the end, these things, even if they didn't end up being properly known or unearthed, they could be felt. You could have felt that your father is actually, saying what you're saying to other people, and that meant, tension, and triggered what is usually labeled as post-communist, skepticism. Romanians are now very skeptical when they see someone not so trusty about other people surrounding. They may be informers, although obviously communist has ended, but it was such a disturbing, disrupting reality back then in communist times that it has traumatized people.
That's quite. And you have these stories with the Jews after the Second World War, who also had friends that told on them and stuff, and so there's a lot of wounds still in that group, and you have all this. You have the Armenians, and you have the Kurds, and I was talking about different groups of people. It's what I now understand. It's a common mistake, but in Norway we have the Rom people in the streets, and they what you say, they are very easy to spot in a way, because they tend to live a different kind of life than many. And then because the name Rom
is very similar to Romanians.
So and many of them actually are Romanians as well. So then we have the connection to Romania, but historically they're actually not Romanian, isn't that?
No, they're not Romanian. So the Roma culture, the Roma people spelled with double R, R, yes,
O-M-A,
Roma, have been slaves throughout Europe in the Middle Ages, properly, and mostly in the eastern part of Europe, in the Byzantine Empire. They come from India. They are nomadic tribes coming from India, and they have been moving, but not conquerors. Such as all the other Asian migrating powers, the Ottomans, Seljuk, Turks, all the others. Yes, the Counts, Mongols, Huns, all the others. Yes, no, but the Roma were peaceful migrators, and they ended up being slaves. That was the problem. This is what I know. And I don't know why they ended up with this official name of Roma, because we call them gypsies. I mean, gypsy is the English term. The Romanian term is Țigan. But no Roma. The Roma name is recent. I don't know the origins of the
but-
Roma name.
I know. Actually, that I know.
Okay.
Because Roma, it means people in Roma language.
Okay, so there.
So they identify as people.
People,
They're
people.
just people. Yeah, people. And actually, in Norway, we say like, at least we have said used the word sigøyner. Sigøyner, which is like very the same.
Turkish.
No,
Sounds Turkish.
no, it's you here you had sigøyneri,
Tsigan.
sigan. Oh yeah, in my ears it was you said sigan, we said sigøyner.
Okay, yeah. Zigeuner.
Sigøyner.
You can say it in German.
But-
Zigeuner.
Sigøyner. Yeah, we had.
Okay.
I heard the word gypsy was because they thought they were Egyptians. Egyptians?
Egyptian.
Yeah, Egyptian
Gypsy.
gypsy. It was
Really?
Yeah.
I never heard of this
Oh,
theory.
you never heard. Okay.
It's the first time I hear it.
It's like a theory. Okay, but
Yeah, it may be true. It may be true.
but the thing is that they came from India, and then Romania would be a natural passing point through Turkey and Istanbul and into Europe. It would be easy for them to come to
Maybe.
Romania, maybe.
But they can also be found in important numbers in Hungary,
Ah,
also in Serbia,
yeah.
in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
So all this Balkan
Yeah.
area, southeastern Europe, is full of gypsies. And nowadays gypsies have been moving westward, in search of better lives. But traditionally they've been staying mostly in Eastern Europe. And what I'm saying is true. The fact that they've been they started as slaves working the lands in feudal ages during the time of the Byzantine Empire and following that.
Yeah.
That's the origin from what I know.
Yeah.
Of course, it's been hundreds of years of history and they moving around, but it's just, I guess, it's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
The fact that they are named Roma,
Yeah.
whereas the Romanians are Romanians,
Yeah.
and the name Romanians come from the name Roman. So Rome.
Yeah.
I have heard another theory saying that the gypsies are Romans.
Yeah.
This is
That's likely, maybe.
hilarious. It cannot
Yeah.
be. They cannot be from Rome, the
No,
capital
no.
of the Roman Empire. But just coincidence in names, I guess.
It's exciting, and especially sitting like on the other part of Europe, and then because they haven't that's been coming to Norway with their Romania passport, and people just assumed, I think, and then but now lately there's more, and then it's a issue for the city and for the state, because they're more like, okay, but what should we do?
It's difficult because their culture is very different from ours.
But to end up on a positive note,
Yeah.
okay, what's next? The next 5 years, the next 10 years? What's your hopes? What's your?
My hope is that all the reminiscences of communism die.
Okay.
Yes.
Like also the factual, you want like the culture to die, or is it also the buildings and the?
No. I'm not being that radical.
Okay.
No, I mean I'm waiting for the bad things of communism that have been surviving in post-communism, such as corrupt politicians,
Okay.
for instance, to not necessarily to die. I wish them to die, actually.
But they're old. So
some of
maybe
them are old. Yeah,
so
some of them
it's,
may die. But no, I want to say that I expect them to, not be in power anymore. Yeah, to be defeated in elections, to move away by themselves, maybe. Anyway, so to lose these reminiscences of communism and the mentality that comes with the people, and it's you wanted you wanted this to be on a positive note, but
Yeah.
yet again I come to not a positive one. But anyway, for instance, the most popular and most powerful party in Romania after the fall of communism, in all these 30 years of post-communism, is actually the former Communist Party disguised and transformed into the Social Democrat Party.
Okay.
And a lot of the politicians and leaders of this Social Democrat Party were actually communists themselves in communism. Some of them have moved away, but they are suddenly you have their children taking their place, or their relatives, and they're networking, and they, and sadly, this party has been dominating the public scene. But now, I'm reaching that positive note.
Yeah.
But now they are, I guess, they are finally losing power for good.
Okay.
And the next elections may mean the end of their dominance.
Okay.
And I'm this is what I expect, and I want to have the end of communism, actually.
Yeah. It's
30 years after
30
the
years.
end.
It's strange. Yeah, it's strange to think about.
The fact that I am aware of the fact that we are happy to be alive in these times of no wars in Europe. If you look in history, this may be the most peaceful period in known history of mankind, more or less. It's been already, decades of peace and of prosperity. Of course, we are having this ecological issue recently, of course, but we are lucky to be alive, I guess, in these times, and I want to cherish it. I want to be able to realize it and be happy about it, and not cling to all these small little things that may upset me and may discourage me in seeing the whole picture that is fine.
And that's something with your history. I think you can put things in perspective in a totally different way that many others with not that history could pay.
Maybe, yes, of course, because we've been through communism. I'm happy to be alive now and not to have been alive then in communism. But no, I'm talking at a European scale. After the end of the Cold War, let's say 1990, from 1990, it's been 30 years of, similar to what the French called La Belle Époque. Do you know that?
The Belle Époque, the good period.
The good period. Do you know what it means?
No, but you have you told me you had the style of the houses.
Yes. I mentioned this name, Belle Époque.
Yeah.
So, so you don't know what it means?
No, I don't know it.
I can tell you.
Yeah, please.
It's the French call it, labeled this period La Belle Époque, which means the golden period, the beautiful period, wanting to refer to a period of no wars, of no major wars in Europe.
Okay.
That happened before the First World War and after the last major conflict in Europe, that was the Franco-Prussian War of 1871. That was a time when Prussia, with Otto von Bismarck, crushed the French, and Paris was sacked and occupied for a few months or even years. And that was considered the last major war in Europe.
Okay. Until
before 1870, let's say, there were constant wars, bigger or smaller, but anyway, wars. And you can imagine all the Middle Ages full of wars and destruction and plague and whatever. Now 1871 or 72 is considered the last major conflict in Europe. After that, up until the First World War, so from 1871 to 1915, let's say, no other major war happened in Europe, and that triggered the Golden Era. And coupled with the Industrial Revolution, culture and civilization blossomed, and it reached the arts. Such periods of prosperity end up in the buildings. End up in the look of the buildings. It's usually said that architecture is the last art to acquire the features of an era.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have a boom, you have an economical boom, people have money, but it takes a longer time to be seen in architecture, in built form. And as an architect, I can say that I can read the Belle Époque period in the looks of the buildings in Bucharest. They are the most lavish, the most beautiful, the most elegant.
Okay.
Yeah, not necessarily the biggest,
No.
but the most beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the Belle Époque. So
Okay.
I guess that we are now witnessing some sort of another Belle Époque.
Okay. And then
I want to be happy about it.
and then we build all these boring houses in Scandinavia. That's what we do. Well, with all our oil money and everything. But it's been great. It's
Okay.
you felt it. It's been a good
Yes,
chat.
I enjoyed it as well. Thank you.
We are on the sidewalk of this cafe
Yeah.
in the middle of Bucharest, in front of the old or current police building.
Yes, the current police
Yeah.
building.
And it's still like 30 degrees or something.
Maybe it's got down to 25. Let's see.
This is it's a good life.
It is 28.
28 degrees.
It is.
This is our Belle Époque.
Okay.
Nampa?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome.
En liten update, siden jeg snakket med Alex sist. Det var jo i sommer. Tida har gått. Drømmen hans var jo at det skulle komme noen nye til makta. For han var lei de her gammelkommunistene som han mente var korrupte og gjorde en dårlig jobb. Når vi møttes, så var det jo en Klaus Johannis som var presidenten i Romania for det liberale partiet PNL. Siden den gang så har han fått seg en utfordrer, nemlig en tidligere statsminister, Viorica Dancila. Det har vært valg, og der er et system hvor man må ha et flertall, sånn at det kan være flere valgrunder. Og nå er vi altså i tredje valgrunden, og nå er det en Johannis mot Dancila. Og valget er, for meg som sitter her nå, i morgen. Sånn at når du hører det her, så kan det godt være at det er avgjort. Vi får se om det blir som Alex håper, at det blir endring i det politiske systemet. Han og alle de andre arkitektbohemene i Romania. Vi ønsker dem lykke til, og håper du likte podcasten. Jeg synes det var en trivelig samtale i hvert fall. Snakkes!